I can make do here.
What? You expect to stay here?
A gentleman would sleep on the floor.
You sore loser. If you're really that good, you should be able to set up conditions the way you want.
Yeah, well, everybody loves a hero. And what better hero than a knight? You're a picky girl.
Exactly. That's why I go by the name C2.
Welcome to part 2 of analyzing every scene where Lelouch and C2 flirt and tease each other. Today, we'll be looking at these 8 scenes. Let's jump right into the first scene.
By the way, you forgot something.
I didn't forget. I don't know when I'll be back tonight, so I was planning to call her and cancel.
Stick to your contract.
Shirley finally got the courage to invite Lelouch on a date to a concert, something he thinks about back at the Black Knight's base. He's interrupted by Ogi, who gives him Kyoto's invitation. This scene is an excellent example of Lelouch blurring the lines between his identity as Lamperouge and Zero. These recent developments have put Lelouch in quite a predicament. He must decide between going on a date with Shirley or meeting with Kyoto. He of course chooses meeting with Kyoto. On his way to that meeting, he runs into C2 outside the Ashford dorms. He requests her help by saying,
C2, I need you.
C2 agrees to help, but then reminds him of his date with Shirley. Lelouch explained he plans on calling Shirley to cancel it. This leads to C2 teasing Lelouch with a reminder to stick to your contract. There's at least 2 readings of what C2 said. The first is that Lelouch should keep his word by going on a date with Shirley, but the other is C2 reminding Lelouch about their contract. This isn't the first time she had to remind Lelouch about their contract. She tells him they are co-conspirators in Stage 5 and threatened to shoot him in Stage 7 when his actions put fulfilling the contract at risk. C2 started helping Lelouch after this so he wouldn't lose his reason for living. Although she is willing to help him, as we can see in this scene, she's clearly not happy about it. C2 begrudgingly states, well, if this is your reason to live, as her reason for helping him. The comment on sticking to your contract was C2's passive-aggressive way of telling Lelouch that she's not happy with this arrangement. There's another reason why C2 wasn't totally on board with helping Lelouch here. She questioned these actions in Stage 13, thinking that she's making the same mistake again, that mistake being Mao. C2 goes along with Lelouch's plan to act as his double to avoid Taizel's trap, ultimately gaining him as an ally. I like how C2's approach here is to agitate Lelouch while also reminding him the importance of their contract. I guess C2 picked up some of these tricks throughout her immortal life.
Thought I saw Shirley there.
Oh, the girl who kissed you?
Give it a rest, will ya?
Just making sure I got the right girl, lover boy.
After awakening from his injury at Port Yokozuka, he is berated by C2 for his inability to give out orders. Lelouch then retorts with, he's worried about that someone took his gun and thus saw his face. Back at the Black Knight's base, he calls the members of the student council. Since none of them acted any differently on the phone, he assumed they don't know anything. Lelouch didn't remember to have seen Shirley at Port Yokozuka. C2 then throws another low blow by asking if that's the girl that kissed you. Lelouch is immediately defensive and demands she let it go. This leads to C2's coup de grace in calling him Loverboy. C2's curiosity with Lelouch and Shirley's relationship is explored in these episodes, ending with the completion of the Mao arc. First, she reminded Lelouch not to forget about his date with Shirley, and now is confirming that Shirley is the same girl that kissed Lelouch. C2 calling Lelouch Loverboy was a follow-up to her joke on who would steal his gun, which means she was just kidding when she made that comment. It's probably too early in the series to suggest that C2 is showing any jealousy towards Lelouch's interest in Shirley. She even tells Marion in an earlier episode that there's nothing between the two. Ultimately, what you have here is just C2 making fun of Lelouch's love life despite knowing that there isn't one.
Why should I have to go rifling through some girl's underwear? This is going to cost you.
It always does.
Lelouch is now desperate to find Shirley since she has his gun. This leads to him using his Geass on Sophie Wood to allow him and C2 to search the dorm room since Sophie and Shirley are roommates. While they're searching through Shirley's belongings, C2 complains about having to look through a girl's underwear and notes how Lelouch will have to pay her back for this. C2 isn't quite done with the jokes yet because she then wonders how would Shirley react knowing the man she loves went through her underwear. C2 clearly thinks Lelouch is making a big deal out of this. C2 finds Shirley's journal, which doesn't reveal anything unusual outside the last entry. C2 finds pictures of him with Shirley in a box, which comes in handy later on. C2 didn't find anything odd about the pictures and jokes about how Shirley seems like a normal girl. By happenstance, Lelouch finds out that Shirley is going to Narita through a train by looking at the log of tickets. On the train, the two discuss his feelings for Shirley. Lelouch can't confirm or deny if he has feelings for Shirley. Shirley. C2 in frustration then questions why they're doing this to begin with. After Lelouch mentions it's because Shirley knows his true identity, C2 then asks if he would kill her, something Lelouch contemplated during the epilogue of that episode.
Maybe I was too soft. Maybe it would have been better to just kill Shirley.
I guess he simply wanted to find Shirley and go from there. The episode ends in tragedy, with Lelouch having to erase Shirley's memories so she can go back to her normal life. I absolutely love the back and forth while in Shirley's dorm room. By their tone and their own admission, this is not the first time that Lelouch has made unusual requests for C2, and that those unusual requests have cost him in the past. Now, from what we have seen so far, there aren't many examples where this has happened on screen. There was that botch attempt where Lelouch failed to say her name properly.
How was that?
It was bad. It was completely bad.
But most of the time we don't see that, and even that was obviously a different situation. I assume this scene exists to show the viewer exactly the nature of how these two work together. Lelouch gets into trouble, and then he requires C2 to perform these weird jobs to get him out of it. We saw something like that with Taizo, but C2 didn't suggest this would cost Lelouch anything, but was annoyed with the request itself. I guess it just shows the lengths C2 will go to help Lelouch, with teasing him as her only way of tolerating these requests. I do wonder how Lelouch repays his debts to C2. Perhaps his payment is allowing C2 to purchase pizza on his card, and she purchased a lot of pizza and never seems to bother him. This was a fun interaction where C2 has to deal with Lelouch's BS in the only way she knows how, with fun insults.
I don't know about that, but unlike you, I do have some humility.
Good, now you can put it to use. How's your passport?
Not a bad forgery. I'm all set.
Lelouch took care of Mao in the previous episode, so he assumed sending C2 as an ambassador to China wouldn't be a problem. Boy, he was so wrong. Before C2 leaves, they have this fun back and forth conversation. Lelouch explains that C2 needs to act humble to gain favor with the Chinese Federation. C2, probably taking offense to his statements, retorts that she at least has some humility. Lelouch wins this round by countering with, "Okay, great, you think you're superior to me? Well, now let's see you put it to good use." C2 then leaves, stating the forgery looks great. Side note, I love C2's diplomatic look. Not relevant to discussion, just wanted to mention it. This simple scene, like the last one, gives you insights into how their relationship has evolved. These two are insulting each other as good friends. Neither one takes the insults too seriously. This is evident by their expression during the scene. For context, Lelouch and C2 just dealt with Mao, which was a tense situation that drove both to hating each other. Lelouch and C2 patched things up during their conversation on the landing pad. I assume offering her his contract was a way to show that he forgives her. It's a demonstration of taking responsibility for what happened, which is something confirmed in Season 2, Episode 24. C2 apologized in the next episode for not meeting with the Chinese Federation. Somehow she must have figured out that Mao was still alive. I'm not sure what the timeline of events were here. I assume he called her back. Either way, it's great that she didn't meet with the Chinese Federation since she helped defeat Mao. Let's look at this one line in Lelouch's response to C2's apology.
Making any changes in your usefulness to me will only hinder the plan.
I assume he means that C2's abilities make her more useful to him if she stays here. On a simple level, it refers to the actual plans with the Chinese Federation. But let's go back to my initial interpretation. Perhaps he finds it's a waste of her talent since her immortality and Geass knowledge are her best assets. And of course there's also, oh yeah! This is definitely one of the most underrated moments between these two, as it shows how much their friendship has grown through the use of these fun insults. I especially love how Co-Ment parodied this episode.
You bitch tornado.
Try not to asphyxiate yourself in a closet this weekend.
It was one time and I only came close.
Oh, you came all right.
God, I love you.
The next scenes we're going to look at are part of Stage 21, the school festival. The two have the most fun insulting each other in these slice of life episodes. These moments all happen one after the other, so I'm going to play through each part, then discuss it, then move on to the next, and so forth.
Hey, you. Boy, where am I supposed to go to eat the biggest pizza in the world? Oh, so you're here.
The noise of the school festival woke up C2, and she seemed surprised it was happening. I'm curious as to why Lelouch never told her about it, but given her obsession with pizza, that makes sense, and he doesn't want her wandering outside the dorm since the military is after her. Plus, you have to consider that Colin could recognize her, which will cause even more problems. She never knew that C2 was living in Lelouch's dorm room, so obviously it's best not to even put that thought into her mind. Despite Lelouch's best efforts, C2 figures out that they are going to make the world's largest pizza as the main event of the festival, so naturally she sets out to find it. Lelouch runs into Cecile Crumey, who broke the hammer hitting Lloyd's lookalike, such a savage woman. As he talks to Cecile, C2 gets his attention. This leads to the scene. C2's delivery here sells the comment by expressing her annoyance that she found him. I have two theories as to why she's annoyed. One, she's not happy he didn't tell her about the festival, or two, she knows he will force her back into the dorms, preventing any chance of eating that pizza. I would argue that both could be true, which is what almost happened. Lelouch takes C2 to a warehouse, leading up to the next scene.
I'm asking about the biggest pizza in the world.
I'll bring you some. Now wait in your room.
I don't believe you because you're a liar.
Calling Lelouch a liar might be reference to the fact that he's focusing on his own goals versus her contract. He made the initial commitment in episode 1, then he doubled down on it in episode 15, but it seems like he's spending his time focusing on his own goals, hence why C2 called him a liar. It's also possible that behind the scenes, something like this happened in the past, where Lelouch had to lie to C2 in another non-serious moment. Lelouch's response is both genuine and hilarious, and it fits the tone of the light-hearted exchange.
I don't like cold pizza.
Right now, I have a school festival and a coup d'etat to run.
I don't know what the number one Lelouch quote is, but this has to be up there. This quote summarizes Lelouch's struggles, balancing his high school life as Lamperouge with his life as the Black Knight's leader, Zero. I also agree with Lelouch's concern about the military and the media seeing her. While it's unlikely that Charles or anyone else of similar interests wouldn't be watching this footage, you still don't want to take any chances. We now see that C2's even angrier than before because now she's talking about not liking cold pizza. You probably knows that C2 is basically a pizza snob, something that she repeatedly reminds Lelouch of, and even sometimes Colin. What you then see is C2 taking her frustration out with Lelouch in the next part of this conversation.
You can use your Geass, can't you?
It'd be dangerous to use it on Ogie and whoever that is with him. And I've already used it on everyone else here.
Well, it's your own fault then. You shouldn't use it so freely.
Your comments are not helping!
This sticky situation continues to escalate out of control, with Colin, Shirley, Suzaku, Ogie, and Valletta entering the same warehouse where Lelouch and C2 are talking. Obviously, if Suzaku, Colin, or Ogie sees him with C2, well, that would be very bad, hence why he said,
This is bad. If they see me here with C2, then can this get any more annoying?
C2 then helps Lelouch, and I use that term loosely, by suggesting he uses Geass, which she knows he already used on Suzaku and Shirley. Considering she smiles after Lelouch's response, it comes across as a joke than an actual suggestion. This is validated when Lelouch explains why he can't, since he used it on everyone else aside from Ogie and the person he's with. Technically that's Valletta, so he did use it on her as well. Imagine if he did use the Geass on Ogie and Valletta. Talk about awkward. Anyways, C2 then berates him by stating that he shouldn't have used the Geass so freely. Lelouch immediately lashes back by pointing out that this isn't helping and perhaps expressing his aggravation behind C2 downplaying those uses of Geass. While I enjoyed this fun back and forth, there is something a bit messed up about it. C2 knows that Lelouch used his Geass on Shirley in a moment of desperation and sadness. This use of Geass caused Lelouch to go off on C2, blaming her for everything, even calling her a monster. She also knows that Lelouch didn't want to use Geass on Suzaku. They even had a serious debate on the topic. So by suggesting he used the Geass freely is insulting to what happened to both Shirley and Suzaku. I'm not sure why the writers chose this approach for the scene, but it was uncalled for. Lelouch should have clapped back with more than just your comments aren't helping. Maybe mention that's garbage and you know it. And maybe his tone was trying to convey that, but still, I'm not a big fan of lessening his uses of Geass. Editor chops here. Some of you might be justifying C2's joke since she didn't see Shirley or Suzaku. She could only see Colin after slowly peeking over the corner. But keep in mind, C2 can hear Suzaku and Shirley. She first heard Suzaku talk in stage 6 and Shirley talk in stage 12 and 14. Both say enough in this scene for anyone who's familiar with their voice to identify them. Let's say that C2 wasn't able to recognize the voices. She learns after making the joke that Shirley was present in the warehouse, meaning she now realizes why her joke was in poor taste. Despite learning this, she never apologized for making the joke. You could also interpret Lelouch's tone when explaining why he couldn't use the Geass, that he didn't use it freely. Beyond this, C2 accepted his new contract to not allow Geass to overtake him. Part of that involves lessening the use of Geass. So C2 is not only mocking what happened to Shirley and Suzaku, but Lelouch's new contract itself. They prioritize the joke over everything else, which kind of ruins the scene. Anyways, on a light-hearted note, C2 heads back to the dorm room, and thanks to Yuffie, the pizza is ruined so she never gets to eat it. That's karma, I guess. I understand C2's upset that Lelouch continues to not focus on the contract, but some of her comments were uncalled for. Aside from that, this is maybe the funniest interaction between the two in the entire series.
I'd be lucky to have you then. Unfortunately, I've already made a contract with the devil. I have no room in my life for deities right now.
Before heading off into the Gwain to partake in the final battle in the Tokyo settlement, Zero lays out his plans with D-Tart. Kaguya then surprises him by greeting him before he exits the G1 base. She is a Zero fangirl and is the unofficial wife of Zero, self-proclaimed by the way, obviously. Zero doesn't seem too interested in her offer to be his wife, just in her confidence that they will win. He then explained that he already made a deal with the devil, with C2 just looking at him from the back with the "Lelouch, I'm standing right here" expression. Lelouch has called C2 many names over this season, but I'm pretty sure it's the first time he called her a devil. He used that word because Kaguya called herself a goddess of victory.
I am the goddess of victory after all.
Wait, isn't Cornelia also called by that same name?
Of course. That's why they call Princess Cornelia the goddess of victory.
I guess there's multiple goddess of victories, or perhaps they're both wrong. I think by Lelouch saying he's involved with the devil is implying that he's done so many awful things that he can't really be with a god because that god is for benevolent people. I'm probably reading more into this. What matters here is that Lelouch publicly teases C2, and the best part is no one even knows who he's talking about, making it the perfect inside joke.
You are not alone. We're each other's accomplice. Therefore, if you're supposed to be a witch, then perhaps I should be a demon.
Odd thing to say at a time like this.
With Cornelia captured, it was checkmate. Lelouch was close to clearing out all his tasks, but then C2 drops a bombshell on him. She tells him someone kidnapped Nunnally and is holding her on Kamina Island. Lelouch decides to abandon the Black Knights to rescue her. C2 told Lelouch she knows this because Nunnally is his reason for living, demonstrating the shift from her priorities to his. When Lelouch and C2 arrive at Kamina Island, they are greeted by a Geass trap. Lelouch again experiences C2's memories, witnessing her horrible past. We then get to this moment where Lelouch and C2's minds are present in a different plane of existence. C2 explains the curse of immortality as an eternity of loneliness from outliving everyone. Eventually they become forgotten memories, and the same happens to your very identity. Lelouch then assures her that they are accomplices, and therefore she's not alone. He even played along with the whole mythological symbolism by saying that if she's a witch, then he's a demon. C2 could only smile at this strange time to say something like that. She just poured out her heart, explaining her depression, and just like that, Lelouch is able to flip the script and get her to smile, which is not the easiest thing to do considering C2's traumatic past has made her cold towards others. With this scene, everything has come full circle. When Lelouch and C2 first interacted through similar means, it was calculated, one-sided, and impersonal. Now C2 shows a side of vulnerability and even smiles when Lelouch assures her she's not alone. It's moments like this that led to her line in Turn 24, where she said,
In all my life, I've never met a man like you.
C2, don't die.
Who are you talking to?
You have a point.
After the intimate moment while under the Geass trap, Jeremiah returns. With the Gwain out of energy to fire the Hadric cannon, there's only one option left. C2 must take out Jeremiah using the Gwain itself. Despite being nervous, C2 assures Lelouch it'll be alright, then kisses him before letting him off. It is then they have this fun back and forth. C2's response to Lelouch's command was lighthearted, which is a stark contrast from when Lelouch first brought up this topic. This happened right after they returned from the Geass trap. She gave a similar response, but with more of a no duh type of tone.
C2, you okay?
Don't you know who you're talking to?
I think that the change in her tone later on was due to realizing that Lelouch's concern isn't just about her physical well-being. He's known about her immortality since the beginning, so C2 realized that Lelouch asked her about that because he cares about her, and not just about her physical well-being, but the mental as well, and really just how she is in general. And that was his motivations behind why he first brought up this topic after they escaped the Geass trap. Lelouch just learned that C2's greatest weakness is loneliness. Obviously, she can't be alright having to relive all those awful memories again. Hell, if you watch this scene frame by frame, it becomes obvious that C2 shows a sign of relief that they escaped the trap, demonstrating that she's not okay. Now, for the second time, I think he's asking her to come back to him. They are accomplices after all, and the job isn't finished. More importantly, C2 won't be alone while the two are together. Joking about her mortality was done to break the tension, and it worked. I base this on both C2 and Lelouch's expression during the exchange. In Season 1 of Code Geass, Lelouch and C2's relationship evolved from a one-sided business arrangement to genuinely caring about each other. C2 figured that Lelouch would be a fascinating guy, but had no idea to this extent. She had never dealt with someone quite like him, a person who puts up with her BS then gives it right back to her, someone who can provide a perspective she hadn't thought about, an individual who showed genuine concern for an immortal witch willing to become her demon, a relationship between accomplices, now a relationship between friends, and maybe more. That was part 2 of Lelouch and C2 love to flirt and tease each other scene analysis. I plan to do 2 more of these, one for R2 and the final installment on the films, OVAs, and so forth. I haven't decided if I should then proceed to discuss the more heartfelt moments. My biggest concern is the overlap between my analysis here and what I would discuss in those future videos. If that doesn't bother you, then I'd be more than happy to do it. Perhaps after that I can make some quick lists or move on to analyzing Lelouch and Colin's relationship through the different scenes, or Lelouch and Shirley through the different scenes. I still of course need to make the romantic analysis videos for Akito and Layla, the minor couples in the series, and other animes as well like Monster. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten about Turn 19 either. Lots to do, and somehow I'll get to all of it eventually. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to check out the first part of this series right here.